It's a cold December evening in 2024, and the air at JFK International Airport is thick with the hum of travelers, the scent of coffee, and the chill of winter. Snowflakes drift lazily outside the glass windows as people rush through the terminals, their breaths visible in the frosty air. Among them is Isabel Grayson, a 27-year-old woman with tired eyes and a heavy heart. Stepping off a plane from Los Angeles, she adjusts her scarf, pulling her suitcase behind her, her mind still reeling from a breakup that's left her raw and restless. She's come back to New York to start over, but fate has other plans. As Isabel weaves through the crowd, her gaze lands on a familiar figure near the arrival gate. It's Tyler Vance, her ex-boyfriend of 3 years, standing there with a smug grin. Beside him is Chloe Bennett, her 25-year-old half-sister, her arms crossed and a smirk playing on her lips. Isabel freezes, her stomach twisting. Tyler, 29, with his sharp jawline and slicked-back hair, steps forward. He doesn't waste time. "Isabel, I'm with Chloe now. It's over between us. You were never enough." His words cut deep, but Chloe's next move stings even more. She pulls out her phone, her voice dripping with venom. "I've got screenshots, Isabel. Messages you sent Tyler. I'll post them online, twist them, and let everyone see what a mess you are. You'll be humiliated by morning." Isabel's chest tightens. She can already imagine the flood of comments, the judgment from strangers, the ruin of her quiet life. Panic surges through her as she stammers, "You wouldn't dare." Chloe laughs, a cold, sharp sound. "Try me." Before Isabel can respond, she bumps into someone behind her, nearly dropping her suitcase. She turns to apologize and finds herself staring into the calm, steady eyes of Lucas Harrington, a 30-year-old man in a simple coat, his presence solid and unassuming. He's been watching the scene unfold, waiting for a delayed flight, his hands tucked into his pockets. Lucas doesn't hesitate. He steps forward, placing a hand on Isabel's shoulder, and says to Tyler and Chloe, "Is there a problem here? I've been waiting for Isabel. We've got plans." His voice is firm, authoritative, and it throws Tyler off balance. Chloe narrows her eyes, sizing him up. "Who are you?" she snaps. Lucas doesn't flinch. "Someone who doesn't like seeing people ganged up on. Back off." Tyler scoffs, but there's a flicker of doubt in his expression. He mutters something under his breath, grabs Chloe's arm, and they stalk away, her heels clicking against the tile floor. Isabel exhales, her hands trembling. She turns to Lucas, her voice shaky. "Thank you. You didn't have to do that." Lucas shrugs, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Looked like you needed a hand. I'm Lucas Harrington, by the way." She nods, still processing. "Isabel Grayson, I owe you one." But her relief is short-lived. The threat of Chloe's social media attack looms over her like a storm cloud. She knows her half-sister won't stop, and the thought of her reputation crumbling pushes her to a reckless edge. She looks at Lucas, a stranger who's just stepped into her chaos, and an idea sparks. "Lucas," she says, her voice low but determined. "This might sound insane, but will you marry me? Right now. Not for real, just on paper. If I'm married, Chloe's rumors won't stick as easily. It'll buy me time to figure this out." Lucas raises an eyebrow, studying her. He's just retired from the military, a man used to quick decisions under pressure, and his own family has been hounding him to settle down. He sees the desperation in her eyes, the fire beneath it, and something about her pulls at him. After a long pause, he says, "Okay, but if we do this, we can call it off whenever we want. Deal?" Isabel nods, relief washing over her. "Deal." They don't waste time. The city clerk's office in Lower Manhattan is a short cab ride away, still open for late registrations. The streets outside are lined with twinkling holiday lights, a stark contrast to the whirlwind in Isabel's mind. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzz as they fill out forms, their hands brushing as they sign their names. The clerk, a tired woman with glasses, barely looks up as she stamps their marriage certificate. "Congratulations," she mutters, sliding it across the counter. Isabel stares at the paper, her name now tied to Lucas Harrington's, a man she met less than an hour ago. They step back into the cold night, the certificate tucked into Isabel's bag. She looks at Lucas, her breath visible in the air. "What now?" she asks. He shrugs again, that same faint smile returning. "We figure it out. You're safe for tonight, at least." Isabel nods, her heart still racing. She's just married a stranger to dodge a scandal, and the weight of it hasn't fully hit her. Lucas feels an unexpected pull toward this woman who's stumbled into his life, her courage quietly striking a chord. As they part ways, agreeing to meet tomorrow to sort out their next steps, the snow falls heavier, blanketing the city in silence. Isabel heads to her Brooklyn apartment, her mind a tangle of fear and gratitude. She unlocks her door, steps inside, and sets her suitcase down, the marriage certificate burning a hole in her bag. Across town, Lucas walks toward a hotel, his thoughts lingering on Isabel. The city hums around them, oblivious to the fragile bond they've just forged. Tomorrow, they'll face the reality of their impulsive decision, but for now, the night holds them in its quiet embrace, a fleeting pause before the storm ahead. The snow continues to fall over New York as Isabel Grayson steps into her small Brooklyn apartment, the marriage certificate still tucked in her bag. The space is modest, a one-bedroom haven she's carved out for herself with a worn sofa, a tiny kitchen, and a window overlooking the street. She drops her suitcase by the door, her mind racing from the events at JFK. Lucas Harrington, a stranger-turned-husband, lingers in her thoughts. She replays his calm intervention, the way he faced down Tyler Vance and Chloe Bennett without hesitation. It's past midnight, but sleep feels impossible. She sits on the sofa, staring at the certificate, wondering what she's gotten herself into. Across town, Lucas Harrington checks into a hotel near Times Square, his military duffel bag slung over his shoulder. The room is simple, a stark contrast to the life he's hiding. He's the CEO of Harrington Industries, a sprawling empire of real estate and technology, but he's told Isabel none of this. To her, he's just a retired soldier, a man drifting after years of service. He sits on the edge of the bed, replaying their impulsive wedding, her fire, her vulnerability. It stirred something in him he can't quite name. Tomorrow, they'll meet again, and he wonders how long he can keep his secret. The next morning, Isabel texts Lucas, suggesting they meet at her place to figure out their arrangement. He arrives at noon, knocking on her door with a quiet confidence. She lets him in, offering a hesitant smile. "Thanks for coming," she says, gesturing to the sofa. "I thought we should talk about how this works." Lucas nods, taking a seat. "Makes sense. We're married now, at least on paper. What do you need from me?" Isabel paces, her hands fidgeting. "I need Chloe to back off. If she thinks I've moved on, she might drop the rumors. Maybe you could stay here for a while, just to sell it." Lucas considers this, then agrees. "I can do that. I don't have a place lined up yet, anyway." And so Lucas moves in, his few belongings fitting easily into a corner of her living room. The first few days are awkward, a dance of strangers sharing space. Isabel works remotely as a graphic designer, her laptop humming on the kitchen table, while Lucas spends hours on his phone, claiming he's job hunting. But he's quick to help, fixing a leaky faucet, picking up groceries, cooking dinner. One evening, he makes pasta from scratch, the smell filling the apartment. Isabel watches, surprised. "Where'd you learn that?" she asks. Lucas grins. "Military bases get boring. You pick up skills." She laughs, the sound rare and unguarded, and for a moment, the tension between them softens. Over dinner, Isabel opens up. She tells him about her past, her voice steady but laced with pain. "My mom died when I was 15, cancer. Robert Grayson, my dad, remarried 6 months later to Vanessa Pierce, Chloe's her daughter from before. I never fit in after that. Moved out at 18 and haven't looked back." Lucas listens, his fork paused midair. "That's rough," he says simply. "Sounds like you've been on your own a long time." Isabel nods, staring at her plate. "Pretty much. What about you?" Lucas hesitates, then offers a half-truth. "Military life. Parents passed years ago, no siblings. Just me now." It's enough to satisfy her, but he feels the weight of what he's not saying. Their fragile bond grows through these small moments. One night, Isabel pulls out a bottle of wine, a leftover from a client gift. They sit on the sofa, glasses in hand, the city lights flickering outside. The alcohol loosens her tongue and she admits, "I don't know why you said yes to this. You don't even know me." Lucas takes a sip, his eyes meeting hers. "You looked like someone worth helping. That's enough for now." The air shifts, charged with an unspoken pull. She leans closer, her hand brushing his, and for a heartbeat it seems they might cross a line, but Lucas pulls back, standing abruptly. "I'll take the couch," he says, his voice rough. He grabs a blanket and settles in, leaving Isabel staring after him, her heart pounding. The next day, trouble finds them. Isabel's phone buzzes with a message from Chloe, a screenshot of an old text to Tyler with a taunting caption. Pathetic, right? She's still obsessed. Isabel's face pales as she shows it to Lucas. She's posting this stuff online. It's starting. Before she can spiral, they hear a knock. Isabel opens the door to find Chloe standing there, smirking, her phone still in hand. "Thought I'd drop by, see how the loser's doing," Chloe says, peering inside. She spots Lucas and laughs. "Who's this? Your rebound? He looks broke." Isabel clenches her fists, but Lucas steps forward, calm and unshaken. "Lucas Harrington," he says, his tone cool. "Her husband, actually, and you're interrupting our day." Chloe's smirk falters, her eyes darting between them. "Husband, you're lying." Lucas pulls a small box from his pocket, something he'd picked up that morning, and hands it to Isabel. "Open it," he says. Inside is a sleek silver bracelet, elegant and expensive, stamped with the Harrington Industries logo. Though Isabel doesn't know that yet, she slips it on, stunned, and Lucas turns to Chloe. "Believe it now, maybe you should leave." Chloe's face twists with envy, her plan unraveling. "This isn't over," she snaps, storming off, her parting shot echoing in the hall. Isabel stares at the bracelet, then at Lucas. "Where'd you get this? It looks expensive." He shrugs, dodging the truth. "Had it lying around, thought it'd shut her up." She doesn't press, but gratitude flickers in her eyes. "Thanks." Again. They sit back down, the wine forgotten, the bracelet glinting on her wrist. Isabel feels a warmth she hasn't in years, a sense that maybe she's not as alone as she thought. Lucas watches her, his secret pressing harder against his chest. He's not just a soldier, not just a drifter, and every day with her makes it tougher to hide. Outside, the snow piles up, softening the edges of Brooklyn's streets. Isabel locks the door, her mind settling into an uneasy calm. Chloe's threat still lingers, but Lucas's presence feels like a shield. She glances at him, sprawled on the sofa, already half asleep, and wonders what he's running from. Lucas cracks an eye open, catching her look, and offers a small nod. Tomorrow they'll face more questions, more challenges, but tonight the apartment holds a quiet truce. The city hums beyond the walls, a backdrop to their tentative alliance, as two strangers begin to build something neither expected. The Brooklyn apartment feels smaller as the days stretch into a week, the snow outside piling up against the windows. Isabel Grayson adjusts to Lucas Harrington's presence, his quiet habits weaving into her routine. He's up early, brewing coffee before she stirs, and spends evenings tinkering with a broken lamp or cooking meals that fill the space with warmth. Isabel finds herself softening, her guard lowering with each shared dinner. The bracelet he gave her sits on her wrist, a constant reminder of his stand against Chloe Bennett. She hasn't heard from her half-sister since that confrontation, but the silence feels more like a brewing storm than peace. Lucas, meanwhile, balances two lives. By day, he's the ex-soldier Isabel knows, deflecting questions about his past with vague answers. By night, he slips out to a hotel payphone, managing Harrington Industries from afar. He tells his assistant Owen Caldwell to keep his absence from the company discreet. "I need time," he says, his voice low. "No one knows I'm here." Owen warns him about boardroom whispers, but Lucas brushes it off. He's drawn to Isabel, her resilience, pulling him in deeper, and he's not ready to shatter the fragile world they're building. One evening, Lucas suggests they get out. "You've been cooped up too long," he says, handing her a coat. Isabel hesitates, then agrees. He takes her to a charity gala in Manhattan, claiming he got free tickets from a friend. The venue is a gleaming skyscraper, all glass and gold, buzzing with New York's elite. Isabel feels out of place in her simple black dress. But Lucas moves with ease, nodding to a few faces. She doesn't notice the way people defer to him, the subtle glances of recognition. They mingle, sipping champagne, until a man in a tailored suit approaches. "Mr. Harrington," he says, extending a hand. "Good to see you back." Isabel freezes, her glass halfway to her lips. Lucas recovers quickly, shaking the man's hand. "Good to see you too. This is Isabel Grayson, my wife." The word slips out naturally, and Isabel's eyes widen. The man nods, unfazed, and moves on. Isabel turns to Lucas, her voice sharp. "What was that? He called you Mr. Harrington, like it means something." Lucas sighs, setting his glass down. "We should talk, somewhere private." He leads her to a quiet balcony, the city sprawling below, lights twinkling against the night. "I'm not just a soldier," he admits. "I run Harrington Industries. Real estate, tech, a few other things. That's who I am." Isabel stares at him, processing. "You're a CEO? And you didn't tell me?" Her tone is a mix of disbelief and hurt. Lucas meets her gaze, steady. "I wanted someone to see me, not the money or the name. When we met, you didn't care about any of that. I liked it." Isabel steps back, her mind racing. "So this whole time you've been lying?" He shakes his head. "Not lying, just waiting. I was going to tell you." She looks away, the bracelet suddenly heavy on her wrist. "I need to think," she says, and walks back inside, leaving him on the balcony, the cold biting at his skin. The next day, trouble escalates. Isabel's phone rings, and it's Robert Grayson, her father. His voice is clipped, urgent. "We need to meet, now. The old house in Westchester." She hasn't spoken to him in years, but the edge in his tone pulls her in. She tells Lucas, who insists on coming. They drive an hour north, the snow-dusted suburbs unfolding around them. The Grayson family home looms ahead, a faded colonial with peeling paint, a relic of better days. Robert waits in the living room, his face lined with stress. Beside him is Vanessa Pierce, his wife, her eyes cold and calculating. "Isabel," Robert begins, "the company's dying. Grayson Designs, your mother's legacy. We're bankrupt unless we get an investor." Isabel frowns. "Why tell me now? You've ignored me for years." Vanessa cuts in, her voice sharp. "Because you owe us. Victor Marshall, a client, will save us. He's interested in you. Meet him, convince him, and we keep the business." Isabel recoils. "You want to sell me off? That's insane." Robert's jaw tightens. "It's practical. You're a Grayson. Act like it." Lucas, silent until now, steps forward. "She's not a bargaining chip. This stops here." Vanessa smirks. "And who are you? Her bodyguard?" Lucas's voice is steel. "Her husband. And I don't let people bully my wife." Robert laughs, bitter. "Husband, convenient timing. Doesn't change facts. We need this." Isabel's hands tremble, but she finds her voice. "You don't own me. Mom left me her share of the company and this house. I checked the will years ago. Where's it gone?" Robert's face darkens. "That's ours now. You walked away." Lucas pulls out his phone. "Not if I have anything to say about it. I've got lawyers who'll dig into this. You've got nothing unless it's legal." The room crackles with tension. Vanessa snaps. "You'll regret this." But Lucas doesn't budge, guiding Isabel out. In the car, she's quiet, her mind a storm. "You didn't have to do that," she says finally. Lucas keeps his eyes on the road. "Yeah, I did. They don't get to hurt you." Back in Brooklyn, Isabel digs through old files, finding her mother's will. It's true, she's entitled to half the company and the house, but Robert's hidden it. Lucas calls a contact, a top attorney named Sarah Klein. "File a suit," he says. "Everything they've taken, we're getting back." Days later, Chloe resurfaces online, posting a photo of Isabel from years ago, captioned, Desperate and broke, some wife. Comments flood in, cruel and mocking. Isabel's stomach drops, but Lucas sits beside her, unfazed. "Let me handle this," he says. He calls Owen Caldwell, instructing him to trace the post and counter it. Within hours, Harrington Industries issues a statement. Lucas Harrington proudly stands by his wife, Isabel Grayson. False claims will face legal action. The tide shifts, Chloe's post backfiring as supporters rally around Isabel. Tyler Vance, meanwhile, faces his own reckoning. Harrington Industries uncovers his falsified resume, a scandal from his college days. Owen delivers the news to Lucas over the phone. He's out, fired this morning. He's furious, threatening to sue. Lucas shrugs. Let him try. Isabel overhears, piecing it together. "You did that?" she asks. Lucas nods. "He hurt you. I don't let that slide." She studies him, the man she married on a whim, now fighting her battles. "Well?" she whispers. He meets her eyes, his voice soft. "Because I'm starting to care. More than I planned." The apartment grows quiet. The cities hum a distant pulse. Isabel sits with the will, the bracelet, the weight of Lucas's words. She's reclaiming her past, but his confession cracks something open. She doesn't say it, but she feels it too, a thread of trust weaving through the chaos. Lucas watches her, his secret out, his heart exposed. The lawsuit moves forward, Sarah Klein building a case against Robert and Vanessa. Chloe's online venom fades, Tyler's threats hollow. For now, they've won a fragile victory, but the storm isn't over. Isabel glances at Lucas, asleep on the sofa, and knows there's more to face. Together. The air in Isabel Grayson's Brooklyn apartment grows heavier as winter deepens, the snow outside now a thick blanket over the city. She sits at her kitchen table, the will from her mother spread out before her, Lucas Harrington's confession still echoing in her mind. He's more than a soldier, more than a stranger, and his quiet vow to protect her has shifted something deep within. Lucas sleeps on the sofa, his breathing steady, unaware of the storm brewing beyond their fragile sanctuary. Isabel traces the bracelet on her wrist, a gift from a man she's only beginning to understand, and feels a flicker of hope amid the chaos of her life. Across town, in a sleek Manhattan penthouse, Samantha Dutton paces, her heels clicking against polished wood. She's 28, sharp-edged and ambitious, Lucas's ex-girlfriend with a grudge as cold as the December night. Beside her stands Miles Thornton, 32, Lucas's cousin and a Harrington Industries executive with his own hunger for power. They've watched Lucas's rise, his marriage to Isabel, and they're not content to sit idle. "He's distracted," Samantha says, her voice low. "This wife of his, she's a weakness. We can use her." Miles nods, his eyes glinting. The Silver Lake Project, it's his crown jewel. If he loses it, the board will turn. I'll take his place. Their plan takes shape quickly. Samantha digs into Isabel's past, finding old photos and half-truths. She crafts a narrative, vicious and viral, and posts it online. Isabel Grayson, gold digger, trapped Harrington heir in sham marriage. The post spreads like wildfire, comments piling up, tearing into Isabel's character. Miles amplifies it, leaking rumors to business blogs, questioning Lucas' judgment. At the same time, Samantha calls Isabel from a burner phone, her voice disguised. "Leave him, or we ruin you both." Silver Lake's on the line. Isabel's hands shake as she listens, the threat sinking in. She's 3 weeks pregnant, a secret she's only just confirmed, and the weight of it makes her dizzy. Lucas wakes to Isabel's pale face, her phone still clutched in her hand. "What's wrong?" he asks, sitting up. She shows him the post, the call log, her voice trembling. "They're after you, because of me." He reads the screen, his jaw tightening. "This is Samantha Dutton, I know her tricks. And Miles, he's been gunning for my spot since we were kids." Isabel frowns. "Your ex? Your cousin?" "Why me?" Lucas stands, pacing. "They think you're my Achilles heel. They're wrong. We fight this together." He calls Owen Caldwell, his assistant, barking orders. "Trace the post. Shut it down and get security on Isabel, now. But the storm doesn't wait. That afternoon, Robert Grayson calls again, his tone desperate. Isabel, come to Westchester, alone. It's about Eleanor. Isabel's heart lurches. Eleanor Grayson, her 78-year-old grandmother, the only family who ever loved her. Lucas insists on driving her, but she shakes her head. If it's her, I need to go. Stay here, keep the company safe. He relents, reluctant, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Call me if anything feels off. She nods, grabbing her coat, the drive north a blur of snow and dread. At the old house, Robert waits, his face haggard. Vanessa Pierce lingers nearby, her eyes sharp. Eleanor's sick, Robert says, heart trouble. She's asking for you, but there's a catch. Sign over your shares, the house, everything your mother left. It's the only way we save the company. Isabel's blood runs cold. You're lying. She'd never want this. She pushes past him, climbing the stairs to Eleanor's room. Her grandmother sits in a chair, frail but alert, her white hair framing a weary smile. Isabel, she whispers, I knew you'd come. Robert follows, his voice rising. Sign it or we lose everything. Eleanor agrees. Isabel turns to her grandmother, searching her eyes. Eleanor shakes her head, weak but firm. No, I don't. He's been hounding me for weeks. My heart can't take it. Isabel kneels beside her, fury building. You've been stressing her out for money? She's dying because of you. Robert grabs her arm, desperate. It's business, Isabel. Grow up. She wrenches free, dialing Lucas. Get here, now. It's Eleanor. Lucas speeds north, but danger closes in elsewhere. Tyler Vance and his mother, Diane Vance, 54 and ruthless, have their own score to settle. Tyler's firing from Harrington Industries has left him humiliated, and Diane fuels his rage. Lucas did this, she hisses, handing him keys to a truck. End him. That night, on a snowy highway outside Westchester, Tyler spots Lucas's car. He accelerates, ramming the side, sending Lucas spinning into a ditch. The truck vanishes into the dark, leaving Lucas slumped over the wheel, blood trickling down his face. Isabel waits at the house, her phone buzzing with no answer from Lucas. Eleanor grips her hand, her breathing shallow. You're strong, child, stronger than them. Before Isabel can respond, Eleanor's eyes flutter shut, her grip slackening. Isabel chokes back a sob, calling an ambulance. But it's too late. Eleanor's gone, her heart finally giving out under Robert's relentless pressure. The paramedics arrive, confirming the loss, and Isabel collapses against the wall, grief swallowing her whole. Hours later, Owen Caldwell calls, his voice tight. Lucas crashed. He's in the hospital, coma. We think it was deliberate. Isabel's world tilts. She drives to the city, tears blurring the road, arriving at the hospital to find Lucas in a sterile room, tubes snaking from his arms. She sinks into a chair beside him, her hand on his, whispering, Don't leave me too. She's pregnant, alone, and surrounded by enemies, but something, steel-hard, rises in her chest. She won't break. The next morning, Miles Thornton strides into Harrington Industries, a predator sensing blood. With Lucas down, he calls an emergency board meeting, claiming leadership. He's unfit, Miles tells the suits around the table. His wife's a liability. I steer us through Silver Lake. Isabel hears of it through Owen, who's loyal to Lucas. She wipes her tears, pulls on a coat, and marches to the Manhattan headquarters, her mother's will in hand. She's still half owner of Grayson Designs, a leverage point. Bursting into the meeting, Isabel faces Miles, her voice cutting through the room. You don't get to take this. Lucas built it, and I'm here for him. Miles sneers. You? A nobody? She slams the will down. I've got assets, and I'm his wife. Try me. The board hesitates, impressed by her fire. Owen backs her, presenting Lucas's directives, naming her proxy. Miles fumes, but the tide shifts. Isabel takes charge, her pregnancy a secret strength, vowing to hold the line until Lucas wakes. Online, Samantha's smear campaign rages, but Isabel counters with a press release, drafted with Owen's help. Harrington Industries stands united. Lies won't break us. Public opinion wavers, some siding with her grit, Chloe piles on, posting more venom, but it's drowned by supporters rallying around Isabel. Tyler, emboldened, calls her, his voice slurred with rage. "You'll pay for ruining me." She hangs up, blocking him, her focus on Lucas and the company. At the hospital, Isabel sits by Lucas's bedside, exhaustion carving lines into her face. She whispers to him, "I lost Eleanor. I can't lose you. We've got a baby coming, Lucas. Fight." A nurse checks his vitals, offering no promises. Outside, Robert and Vanessa plot, furious at losing Eleanor's leverage. Samantha and Miles regroup, their scheme faltering but not dead. Diane smirks in a dark corner, Tyler at her side planning their next move. In the apartment, Isabel's laptop glows with work, Grayson Designs papers scattered around. She's fighting on all fronts, her grandmother's memory a quiet fuel. The city pulses beyond the window, indifferent to her war. Lucas lies still, his fate uncertain, but Isabel clings to hope. The hospital room in Manhattan hums with the steady beep of machines, a quiet rhythm beneath the storm that's consumed Isabel Grayson's life. She sits beside Lucas Harrington's bed, her hand resting on his, her eyes red from sleepless nights. It's been 3 days since the crash, 3 days since Eleanor Grayson's death, and the weight of loss presses hard against her chest. She's pregnant, a secret she clings to like a lifeline, whispering to Lucas in the dim light, "You've got to wake up, we've got a family to build." The nurse checks his chart, her face neutral, offering no promises. Isabel holds her breath, waiting for a miracle. Across the city, at Harrington Industries, Miles Thornton seethes, his bid for control slipping through his fingers. Isabel's stand at the board meeting has rallied enough support to stall his takeover. But he's not done. He meets Samantha Dutton in a shadowed cafe, her nails tapping the table. "She's tougher than we thought," Samantha says, her voice bitter. "But Lucas won't wake up soon. We push harder, break." "How the magic wave not?" Underneath, Samantha says with an appreciating breath. Miles nods, plotting their next move. Meanwhile, Tyler Vance and Diane Vance lurk in a rundown motel, nursing their own revenge. "She's why I'm nothing," Tyler mutters, clutching a beer. Diane smirks. "Then we finish what we started." But the tide begins to turn. Owen Caldwell, Lucas's loyal assistant, digs into the crash, working with a private investigator. They find tire marks, paint traces, and a witness who saw a truck flee the scene. "It's deliberate," Owen tells Isabel over the phone, his voice urgent. "We're closing in." She nods, steeling herself, and calls Sarah Klein, the attorney fighting for her mother's estate. "Robert Grayson's behind Eleanor's death," Isabel says. "Stress, pressure, it killed her, prove it." Sarah agrees, filing charges, her team unearthing medical records showing Eleanor's decline under Robert's demands. In the hospital, a flicker of hope emerges. Lucas's fingers twitch. A small movement Isabel catches from the corner of her eye. She gasps, gripping his hand tighter. "Lucas? Can you hear me?" His eyes flutter open, dazed but alive, and relief floods her. "Isabel," he croaks, his voice weak. She laughs through tears, pressing her forehead to his. "You're back, thank God." The doctor rushes in, confirming he's stable, though recovery will take time. Lucas squeezes her hand, piecing together the chaos. "What's happened?" She tells him everything. Eleanor's death, the company, the threats. His jaw tightens. "They don't win. We end this." With Lucas awake, the fight accelerates. He calls Owen from the hospital bed, voice hoarse but firm. "Get me everything on Miles and Samantha, and find that truck." Owen delivers within hours, evidence piling up. Samantha's burner phone ties her to the smear campaign, traced by cybersecurity experts. Miles's emails reveal he leaked Silver Lake project details to rivals, sabotaging Lucas. The crash links to Tyler, security footage catching his truck near the highway. Diane's bank records show payments to a mechanic for quick repairs. Lucas hands it all to the police, his eyes blazing. "Arrest them, all of them." Justice moves swiftly. Samantha Dutton is picked up at her penthouse, her protest shrill as handcuffs snap on. "This is a mistake," she yells, but the evidence silences her. Miles Thornton is detained at Harrington Industries, his office raided, his smug grin gone. Isabel stands in the old Westchester house one last time, the walls echoing with Eleanor's memory. She decides to sell it, along with Grayson Designs, the company her mother built. The sale fetches millions and she funnels it into a foundation, the Eleanor Grayson Fund, to support orphan children. "It's what she'd want," Isabel tells Lucas, her voice steady. He nods, still weak but upright, leaning on a cane. "You're honoring her." That's enough. They leave the house behind, the past settling into a quiet goodbye. Spring arrives, melting the snow, and with it comes renewal. Lucas recovers fully, reclaiming his role at Harrington Industries. He calls a board meeting, Isabel at his side, and lays out the truth. "Miles betrayed us, Samantha too, but we're stronger now. Silver Lake's back on track." The board applauds, Miles's allies slinking away, the company united. Online, Chloe Bennett's final post flops, her credibility shot, drowned by a wave of support for Isabel. Tyler's threats fade into prison walls, Diane beside him, their vengeance buried. In a small church on the outskirts of New York, Isabel and Lucas stand before a handful of guests. She's in a simple white dress, her belly just beginning to show, his hand steady in hers. They renew their vows, this time for real, the paper marriage transformed by love forged in fire. Owen Caldwell grins from the pews, Sarah Klein beside him, witnesses to their journey. The priest smiles. "You may kiss." Lucas pulls Isabel close, their kiss a promise, the crowd clapping softly. They move into a Manhattan townhouse, a fresh start overlooking the Hudson River. Isabel decorates a nursery, painting walls a soft yellow, Lucas assembling a crib with careful hands. One evening they stand on the balcony, the city skyline glowing against the dusk. Isabel rests her head on his shoulder, her voice quiet. "I lost so much. Eleanor, my mom, years I can't get back, but you're my light through it all." Lucas turns to her, his eyes warm. "And you're mine. We've got a future now, Isabel. You, me, this little one." He touches her stomach, a smile breaking through. The nursery waits, a rocking chair by the window, a mobile spinning stars above the crib. Isabel frames a photo of Eleanor, placing it on the shelf, her grandmother's gentle face watching over them. The Eleanor Grayson Fund launches, its first grant helping a shelter in Brooklyn, a legacy of care. Lucas oversees Silver Lake, the project thriving, a testament to their resilience. The city moves on, its rhythm unbroken, but within their home time slows, wrapping them in peace. Isabel thinks back to that night at JFK, the panic, the stranger who became her anchor. She'd married Lucas to escape a lie, but found a truth deeper than she'd imagined. He'd hidden his world, fearing it would define him, only to discover she saw him anyway. They've faced betrayal, loss, and schemes, but emerged whole, their bond unshakable. The baby kicks, a tiny pulse of life, and Isabel smiles, Lucas's arm around her. The townhouse glows with evening light, the river reflecting a golden sheen. Isabel leans into Lucas, her hand in his, the bracelet still on her wrist, a symbol of their beginning. "We made it," she says, her voice soft. He nods, kissing her temple. "We did, and we're just getting started." The night settles, calm and sure, their love a quiet triumph over the shadows. The city hums below, a distant song, as they step inside, closing the door on the past, ready for whatever lies ahead.
The Manhattan skyline glittered like diamonds against the twilight sky, as Alexander Sterling's private helicopter descended onto the rooftop of Sterling Enterprises. Inside the boardroom, 12 executives sat frozen in terror, their faces pale as death itself. "You're all fired," Alexander announced, his voice as cold as Arctic ice. The room erupted in gasps. "Except you, Johnson. You stay to clean out their desks." As the devastated executives filed out, Alexander's assistant Marcus approached cautiously. "Sir, that's the third board you fired this month." They were incompetent, Alexander snapped, adjusting his $50,000 Patek Philippe watch. I don't tolerate mediocrity. Meanwhile, 20 blocks away, Emma Bennett was elbow-deep in flour at Sweet Beginnings, her tiny bakery. The ancient oven had broken again, and she was desperately trying to fulfill orders for a charity event. "Come on, Bertha," she coaxed the temperamental oven, giving it a gentle kick. "Just one more batch, please." The bell above the door chimed violently as a man in an expensive suit burst in, phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care if the Tokyo market is crashing, buy everything." Emma looked up, flour dusting her cheeks like snow. "Sir, we're actually closed, but coffee, black, now," Alexander commanded without looking at her. "This is a bakery, not a coffee shop," Emma replied cheerfully. "But I have some day-old muffins if you're interested." Alexander finally looked at her, his steel-gray eyes meeting her warm brown ones. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Then, his phone rang again. "What do you mean the merger fell through?" He roared into the phone, storming out without another word. Emma shrugged and returned to her baking, humming softly. Outside, Alexander paused, looking back through the window at the flour-covered woman who had just dismissed him. Alexander Sterling, the man who made CEOs tremble. Later that night, as Emma locked up, she found a crisp $100 bill on the counter with a note. "For the coffee I didn't get. S." She laughed, tucking the money into the charity donation jar. Rich people are so weird. The next morning, Alexander found himself inexplicably driving past the bakery again. Through the window, he saw Emma dancing with a mop, singing into it like a microphone. His driver, Thomas, noticed the slight smile on his boss's usually stern face. "Shall I stop, sir?" "Don't be ridiculous," Alexander growled, but his eyes remained fixed on the bakery until it disappeared from view. At Sterling Enterprises, Alexander terrorized his staff more than usual. "These projections are garbage," he bellowed at his CFO. "My grandmother could do better, and she's been dead for 10 years. But his mind kept wandering to flour-dusted cheeks and a laugh that seemed to defy his entire worldview. That afternoon, Emma received a call from Sterling Enterprises. "Ms. Bennett, Mr. Sterling would like to place an order for 500 cupcakes for tomorrow's board meeting." "Tomorrow?" Emma squeaked. "That's impossible. My oven barely works and—" "Mr. Sterling doesn't accept impossible," the caller stated firmly. Emma took a deep breath. "Then Mr. Sterling will have to accept no." The line went silent. In his office, Alexander grabbed the phone from his assistant. "This is Sterling. Did you just tell me no?" "Yes, I did," Emma replied calmly. "Unless you'd like to come down here and help me bake them yourself?" Alexander's jaw dropped. Nobody had dared speak to him like this in years. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Bring an apron," Emma said cheerfully before hanging up. Marcus stared at his boss in shock. "Sir, you're not actually going to—" But Alexander was already in the elevator, a strange mixture of irritation and anticipation coursing through him. For the first time in years, someone had challenged him, and he found himself intrigued. As his Rolls-Royce pulled up to the bakery, Alexander saw Emma through the window, covered in flour, laughing as she tried to juggle 3 mixing bowls. His heart did something unexpected. It skipped a beat. "Sir?" Thomas asked, noticing his hesitation. Alexander straightened his tie. "Wait here. This shouldn't take long." But as he pushed open the door and Emma turned to him with that disarming smile, flour in her hair and mischief in her eyes, Alexander Sterling had a feeling his life was about to change in ways his billions couldn't predict. "Ready to get your hands dirty, Mr. Sterling?" Emma asked, holding out a pink apron with unicorns on it. And for the first time in his adult life, Alexander Sterling, corporate raider and billionaire extraordinaire, found himself at a complete loss for words. Alexander Sterling stood in Emma's bakery wearing a ridiculous unicorn apron, his Armani suit now dusted with flour. He held a whisk like it was a weapon of mass destruction. "You're holding it wrong," Emma giggled, reaching around him to adjust his grip. Her proximity sent an unfamiliar jolt through his system. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals, he muttered. How hard can baking be? Famous last words. 20 minutes later, Alexander had somehow managed to cover himself, Emma, and most of the kitchen in cake batter. The simple cupcake recipe had become his corporate Waterloo. You're supposed to fold the ingredients, not declare war on them, Emma teased, wiping batter from his cheek. Their eyes met, and the air crackled with electricity. Alexander cleared his throat. In the business world, aggressive tactics yield results. Well, Mr. Aggressive Tactics, you just murdered my mixing bowl. Emma pointed to the dented bowl on the floor. Meanwhile, outside, Alexander's security team watched in disbelief as their ruthless boss attempted to pipe frosting onto a cupcake, his tongue sticking out in concentration. Is he smiling? One bodyguard whispered. Call the Times. Another joked. Alexander Sterling experiences human emotion. Inside, Emma's ancient oven wheezed and died with a dramatic puff of smoke. Oh, Bertha, not now, she cried. Alexander immediately pulled out his phone. Marcus, buy this woman a new oven. The best one available. No, Emma protested. I don't need your charity, Mr. Sterling. It's not charity. It's an investment in my 500 cupcakes, he countered smoothly. Emma crossed her arms. Then you'll work it off. Every cupcake we make together takes $10 off your debt. Alexander's eyebrows shot up. People usually begged for his money, not refused it. You're negotiating with me? Someone has to keep you humble, she shot back with a wink. Over the next few hours, something magical happened. Alexander, who hadn't laughed genuinely in years, found himself covered in frosting and chuckling at Emma's terrible baking puns. She told him about her dream to expand the bakery into a community center where kids could learn to bake. Why not just ask for investors? He asked, genuinely curious. Because some things can't be bought, Mr. Sterling. They have to be earned, like trust, respect, and really good buttercream frosting. As midnight approached, they finally finished the order. 500 perfect cupcakes lined the counter, but Alexander found himself reluctant to leave. Same time tomorrow? He asked hopefully. Emma raised an eyebrow. Don't you have companies to destroy? They can wait, he said, surprising himself with his sincerity. The next morning, Sterling Enterprises buzzed with gossip. Alexander arrived late, unheard of, with flour still in his hair and humming. Humming. Cancel my meetings, he told a shocked Marcus. I have baking lessons. Sir, the Japanese investors can eat cupcakes, Alexander finished, striding to his office with an actual bounce in his step. At the board meeting, executives nervously bit into Emma's creations. Alexander watched like a proud parent. When the CFO complained about quarterly projections, Alexander simply shoved a red velvet cupcake in his mouth. Taste that, Harrison. That's what success actually tastes like. Later, Emma received a delivery of 50 top-of-the-line ovens. The note read, for Bertha's retirement party. S. She called him immediately. I said one oven. The others are for your community center, he replied. Consider it a hostile takeover of your dreams. You can't just watch me. That evening, Alexander appeared at the bakery in jeans and a t-shirt, clothes his assistant had to buy, because he owned nothing casual. Emma nearly dropped her rolling pin. Who are you and what have you done with the suit? The suit is at the dry cleaner. Apparently buttercream is harder to remove than corporate blood. As they baked, Emma shared stories of her childhood, her grandmother's recipes, and her philosophy that food made with love could change the world. Alexander found himself opening up about his cold upbringing, his father's harsh business lessons, and the loneliness that billions couldn't cure. You know what your problem is? Emma said, booping his nose with flour. Enlighten me, O wise baker. You've forgotten how to play. Before he could respond, she started a flour fight. Within minutes, the kitchen looked like a snowstorm had hit, and Alexander was laughing so hard his sides hurt. As they cleaned up, their hands touched, reaching for the same cloth. The laughter faded, replaced by something deeper, more dangerous. "Emma," Alexander whispered, his voice rough. "We should finish cleaning," she said breathlessly, but neither moved. A crash from the alley broke the spell. Emma rushed outside to find a homeless man had knocked over her garbage bins looking for food. "Henry, I saved you some sandwiches," she said kindly, handing the man a bag of food. Alexander watched, stunned, as she treated the man with the same warmth she showed everyone. In his world, people were assets or liabilities. In hers, everyone had value. "You're remarkable," he said quietly when she returned. "I'm just me," she shrugged. "Nothing special." "That's where you're wrong," he murmured, but she was already back to wiping counters, unaware she was systematically dismantling everything he thought he knew about the world. That night, Alexander couldn't sleep. He stood at his penthouse window looking toward Emma's neighborhood, wondering how a woman with flower in her hair and kindness in her heart had made him question everything he'd built his life on. His phone rang. "Sir, the hostile takeover of Morrison Industries is ready for your approval." Alexander stared at the city lights. "Delay it," he heard himself say. "I need to reconsider our approach." As he hung up, Alexander smiled. Emma was right. Some things couldn't be bought, but maybe, just maybe, they could be earned. 3 weeks into their unconventional friendship, Alexander Sterling found himself doing things that would have horrified his former self, like sitting on the floor of Emma's bakery at 2 a.m., sharing a bottle of cheap wine, and discussing which Muppet best represented various world leaders. "See? Miss Piggy is obviously the British Prime Minister," Emma insisted, her legs crossed beneath her flour-dusted jeans. "You're insane," Alexander laughed, a sound that still surprised him. "And Kermit isn't nearly neurotic enough to be the Fed chairman." Their phones buzzed simultaneously. Emma's showed a text from her best friend. "Emergency, bad Tinder date, need extraction." Alexander's showed 6 missed calls from Tokyo, a crashed stock portfolio, and a message from his board. "Where are you?" They looked at each other. "Sweet Caroline's bar in Greenwich Village," they said in unison, then burst out laughing. "Your friends too?" Emma asked. "My board is having drinks there. Annual tradition after they think they're going to oust me." "Oh no," Emma giggled. "We can't let them meet. Your scary corporate friends and my chaotic artist friends." Alexander stood, offering his hand. "Why not? Could be fun watching their worlds collide." At Sweet Caroline's, the collision was indeed spectacular. Alexander's board of blue-suited sharks occupied one side of the bar, while Emma's friends, a bohemian collection of artists, musicians, and writers, commanded the other. Is Alexander Sterling wearing jeans?" one board member whispered. "Is that Emma with a billionaire?" her friend Jasmine hissed. "The same Emma who uses expired coupons?" After several awkward minutes, Alexander's CFO Harrison cleared his throat. "So, Emma, what's your investment strategy?" "I invest in happiness," she replied cheerfully. "Speaking of which, have you tried these mozzarella sticks? They're life-changing." Harrison blinked. What?" "She means emotional ROI," Alexander translated, surprising himself. "Something you'd understand if you didn't have a calculator for a heart, Harrison." Emma's friends gasped. The board members gasped. The bartender dropped a glass. Then Emma's friend Marcus, not the assistant, shouted, "Karaoke battle, artists versus suits." What followed was the most unlikely karaoke battle in Manhattan history. Alexander's board members, loosened by alcohol and peer pressure, belted out Gordon Gekko-worthy renditions of 80s power ballads. Emma's friends responded with interpretive dance versions of Broadway hits. Then came the moment that changed everything. "Alexander Sterling," Jasmine called out. "Your turn, and you have to sing a love song." The bar fell silent. Alexander. Sterling didn't do love songs. He did hostile takeovers and profit margins. The opening notes of "Can't Help Falling in Love" began. Alexander took the microphone, his eyes finding Emma in the crowd. When he began to sing, his voice, rich, deep, and surprisingly vulnerable, made everyone freeze. Wise men say only fools rush in. But he wasn't looking at the screen. He was looking at Emma, whose hands had flown to her mouth. "But I can't help falling in love with you." Emma's friends noticed. The board members noticed. The bartender started filming. As the song ended, the bar erupted in applause, but Alexander only saw Emma pushing through the crowd toward him. Without thinking, he pulled her close and kissed her. Time stopped. Camera phones flashed. Someone's drink spilled. When they broke apart, Emma whispered, "Your board is watching." "Let them watch," he said, then kissed her again. The next morning, photos of billionaire Sterling's bakery romance were all over social media. Alexander's phone exploded with notifications as his stock prices fluctuated wildly. Apparently, Wall Street wasn't sure what to make of a humanized Alexander Sterling. "Sir," Marcus burst into his office. "The board is in full revolt. They say you're losing your edge, that this romance is affecting your judgment." Alexander looked at the photos on his screen. Him in flower-covered clothes laughing with Emma's friends, singing karaoke with actual emotion. He'd never looked happier. "Then they're fired," he said calmly. "Sir?" "All of them. Effective immediately." "But sir, you can't just—" "Marcus, in the last 3 weeks I've learned to bake, sung karaoke, and discovered that gas station wine won't actually kill you. I've laughed more than I have in 30 years. If the board thinks happiness is bad, for business, they don't belong in my company." He strode to the window, looking down at the city. "Besides, I have a new business plan." "What's that, sir?" "I'm going to fall in love with Emma Bennett, properly. No hostile takeover, no leveraged buyout. Just love." "And the company?" Alexander smiled. "The company will survive, maybe even thrive. Turns out emotional intelligence might be the best investment I've ever made." That afternoon, he appeared at Emma's bakery with a bouquet of flour sacks tied with ribbon. "What's this?" Emma laughed. Traditional flowers seemed too conventional. Besides, these are more practical. She threw her arms around him. "You're absolutely ridiculous." "I know. You're corrupting me." He pulled back to look at her. "Emma, I fired my board." "What? Why?" "Because they thought falling for you was bad for business." Emma's eyes widened. "And is it?" "It's the best decision I've ever made." He cupped her face. "I love you, Emma Bennett. I love your terrible puns, your burnt cookies, and the way you see good in everyone, even corporate sharks like me." Tears filled her eyes. "I love you too, you impossible man, even if you can't fold ingredients properly." They kissed as flour dust danced in the afternoon sunlight. From across the street, the fired board members watched in disbelief. "He's really gone soft," Harrison muttered. "No," said Johnson, who'd survived every firing. "He's finally gone smart. Loves the one merger that always increases value." "The B?" Others turned to stare at him. Johnson shrugged. "What? I'm taking baking classes. My wife loves it." Back in the bakery, Alexander and Emma were planning their future, one that tasted like cinnamon and possibility. "So," Emma said, "want to help me make cookies for the homeless shelter? Only if we can discuss expanding it into a chain of charity bakeries." Emma kissed his cheek. "There's my corporate shark." "Reformed shark," he corrected. "I only bite cookies now." And in the kitchen of Sweet Beginnings, two worlds that should never have mixed created the perfect recipe for love. 6 months later, Sterling Enterprises had transformed as dramatically as its CEO. The once sterile corporate lobby now featured a community board showcasing local charities, and the executive cafe served Emma's kindness cookies, with proceeds funding youth programs. "You've turned my company into a feel-good factory," Alexander Mock complained as he helped Emma set up for the grand opening of Sweet Beginnings Community Center. "And your stock is up 40%, she retorted, adjusting his crooked tie. Turns out good deeds are good business. "Everything ready for tonight?" he asked, nervously patting his pocket for the 100th time. Stop fussing. It's just a community center opening, not a royal wedding. If only she knew. The center was Emma's dream realized. A massive space with industrial kitchens, classrooms, and a cafe where anyone could learn to bake regardless of ability to pay. Alexander had insisted on funding it entirely, but Emma made him promise to let the community own it. Partnership, not charity, she'd said firmly. That's how we change the world. As guests arrived, the contrast between their worlds had beautifully blurred. Former board members chatted with street artists. Homeless individuals shared tables with hedge fund managers. Henry, the man from the alley, now head of the center's outreach program, welcomed everyone with dignity. Speech time, Jasmine called out, pushing Emma toward the microphone. Emma looked radiant in a simple sundress, flour already dusting her shoulder. When I started my little bakery, I believed food made with love could change the world. I never imagined I'd meet someone who'd help me prove it. She found Alexander in the crowd. 6 months ago, a grumpy billionaire stormed into my bakery demanding coffee. He got a life lesson in humility and a face full of flour instead. The crowd laughed. Alexander grinned, remembering. But here's what I learned. Sometimes the hardest hearts just need the right recipe. A cup of kindness, a tablespoon of patience, and a whole lot of love can transform anyone. She raised her glass. To Alexander Sterling, who taught me that, with the right ingredients, we can bake a better world. As applause erupted, Alexander stepped forward. My turn. The room quieted. Even after his transformation, Alexander Sterling commanding attention was still a sight to behold. Emma Bennett, he began, his voice carrying clearly. You accused me of not knowing how to play, of taking life too seriously, of thinking everything could be bought. He reached into his pocket. You were right, but you taught me that the best things, love, trust, family, have to be earned. Dropping to one knee, he pulled out a ring box. The room gasped. I've spent 6 months earning the right to ask you this question. Emma Bennett, will you marry me? Not the billionaire, not the CEO, just the man who loves you more than all the cupcakes in Manhattan? Emma's hands flew to her mouth. But you're proposing with... In the ring box sat not a diamond, but a perfectly crafted silver cupcake, charmed with a tiny diamond sprinkle on top. Because you're not impressed by traditional wealth, Alexander explained, his voice thick with emotion. But I thought you might like a symbol of where we started. Yes, Emma launched herself at him. Yes, 1,000 times yes. As they kissed, the room exploded in celebration. Champagne corks popped, cameras flashed, and someone started playing Sweet Caroline on the piano. Wait, Marcus, the assistant, called out. There's more. The wall behind them slid open, revealing a fully functional bakery classroom labeled the Emma Sterling Foundation Test Kitchen. So you can teach the next generation, Alexander explained to a stunned Emma. And maybe our children someday. Children? Emma's eyes sparkled. Well, we should probably perfect the wedding cake first. 2 weeks later, the New York Times business section featured an unlikely headline. Sterling Enterprises launches Profit with Purpose initiative. Stock soars. The article detailed how Alexander's new business model, investing in communities while maintaining profitability, was revolutionizing corporate America. Other companies scrambled to copy the Sterling standard. But Alexander's favorite press was the small community newspaper that simply said, Local baker teaches billionaire secret ingredient love. The wedding was a perfect blend of their worlds. Held at the community center, it featured a 5-tier cake Emma insisted on baking herself, with Alexander's help, designer gowns for the bakery staff, and a reception that mixed caviar with pigs in blankets. As they shared their first dance to a jazzy version of Can't Help Falling in Love, Emma whispered, Remember when you couldn't even hold a whisk properly? Remember when you told me I couldn't buy happiness? Alexander countered, spinning her gracefully. Still can't, she teased. No, he agreed, pulling her closer. But I can bake it thanks to you. The fired board members, all rehired after taking Emma's Emotional Intelligence in Business seminar, raised their glasses. To hostile takeovers of the heart, Harrison called out, earning laughs and cheers. Years later, when business students studied the Sterling miracle, how one company transformed corporate culture, they'd focus on metrics and strategies. But those who knew the real story understood it began with a broken oven, a stubborn baker, and a billionaire who learned that the best recipes can't be bought, only shared. As Emma and Alexander cut their wedding cake, she smeared frosting on his nose. "For luck," she explained. "I already have all the luck I need," he replied, kissing her despite the frosting. And in that moment, surrounded by their blended family of corporate executives and community activists, Alexander Sterling, the man who once fired people for breathing wrong, realized he'd finally mastered the most important merger of all, the acquisition of a heart. Outside, the sign for Sweet Beginnings glowed in the evening light, now reading, "Sweet Beginnings, where every ending is a new recipe for love." And it was, as Emma would say, absolutely perfect. The end chapter, rating, 10/10. This finale beautifully weaves together all the themes of transformation, love conquering different worlds, and the power of kindness in business. The proposal with the cupcake charm instead of a traditional diamond perfectly symbolizes their unique love story. The wedding brings both worlds together in harmony, showing how love can bridge any divide. The epilogue gives satisfying closure to all characters while maintaining the story's charm and humor throughout. The deafening crash of fine china against Italian marble echoed through the grand ballroom of the Harrison estate. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd of New York's elite as all eyes turned to witness the catastrophe unfolding at the engagement party of the year. Alexander Pierce, 36, stood frozen in his immaculate Tom Ford suit, watching in horror as the woman responsible for the chaos scrambled on her hands and knees, gathering shards of what had been his mother's priceless Ming Dynasty serving platter, his jaw clenched tight enough to crack teeth. "Oops, my bad, everyone." The woman's voice was far too cheerful for someone who had just destroyed a $300,000 family heirloom. "Don't worry, I'm sure we can superglue this baby right back together." Alex's steely gray eyes narrowed as he studied the disaster in human form before him. Wild copper curls escaped from what had probably started as an elegant updo, and her emerald green dress, while stunning, had hiked dangerously high up her thighs as she crawled around collecting ceramic fragments. "Miss, please." He moved toward her, his voice cold and controlled. "You're only making it worse." She looked up, and for the first time Alex saw her face clearly. Something uncomfortable and unfamiliar twisted in his chest. Despite the mascara smudged beneath one eye and the lipstick slightly askew, she was captivating. "Well, aren't you just a ray of sunshine?" she quipped, rising to her feet and extending a hand smeared with chocolate mousse. "I'm Olivia Bennett. You can call me Liv. Everyone does. Well, except my therapist, but that's probably because I pay her not to." Alex stared at the offered hand as if she were holding out a live grenade. "Alexander Pierce," he replied, pointedly, ignoring her hand. "CEO of Pierce Industries and brother of the groom." "Ah, so you're the infamous evil empire Alex." Her eyes widened with recognition. "Emma's told me all about you. I'm her sister, the family disappointment," she added with a wink. Alex felt his temperature rising. Emma Bennett was his brother William's fiancée, polished, refined, intelligent, and apparently the genetic opposite of this hurricane in heels. "If you'll excuse me," he said curtly, "I need to inform the staff about this incident." As he turned to walk away, her voice stopped him. "You know what your problem is, Alexander Pierce," she called after him, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. He shouldn't have taken the bait. He knew better. Yet he found himself turning back. "Enlighten me," he challenged, voice dripping with sarcasm. Olivia's grin was mischievous as she closed the distance between them, stopping close enough that he could smell her perfume, something light and citrusy that inexplicably made his mouth water. "You've forgotten how to live," she whispered, eyes locked on his. "But don't worry, I'm very good at reminding people." Without another word, she brushed past him, leaving the billionaire momentarily speechless, a condition Alexander Pierce had never experienced in his adult life. From across the room, William caught his eye and mouthed, "I'm sorry." Alex straightened his tie, composed his features, and strode toward the bar. He needed a drink, a strong one, and perhaps a restraining order against Olivia Bennet. What he didn't need, what he absolutely, positively did not need, was the way his heart had inexplicably accelerated when she'd locked those sparkling green eyes on his. It was going to be a long 3 months until the wedding. Alexander Pierce did not have time for this nonsense. As CEO of Pierce Industries, a global technology empire valued at $87 billion, his calendar was meticulously managed in 15-minute increments. There were quarterly projections to review, a major acquisition in Singapore to finalize, and 3 board members threatening mutiny over his aggressive expansion into renewable energy. Yet here he was, sitting in a pastel-colored bakery that looked like a unicorn had vomited glitter across every surface, watching Olivia Bennet shovel cake samples into her mouth with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been recently rescued from a deserted island. Oh my God. Her eyes rolled back dramatically as she savored another bite. This champagne elderflower one is like having an orgasm in your mouth. Alex nearly choked on his espresso. The elderly couple at the next table gasped audibly. "Ms. Bennet," he hissed, "could you possibly conduct yourself with an ounce of decorum?" Liv licked frosting from her finger with deliberate slowness. Her eyes locked challengingly on his. "Could you possibly remove that titanium rod from your posterior, Mr. Pierce?" 2 weeks had passed since the engagement party disaster, and somehow, through a series of unfortunate events involving his brother's sudden business trip to Tokyo and Emma's tearful pleas, Alex had been roped into accompanying Olivia to various wedding appointments. "Remind me again why we couldn't reschedule these meetings." Alex checked his watch pointedly. "Because, Scrooge McDuck," Liv said, pushing another cake sample toward him, "good vendors book up 18 months in advance in New York. Emma and Will were lucky to get these appointments. Now try this one. It's lavender honey with edible gold leaf." Against his better judgment, Alex accepted the bite she offered. The flavor was exquisite. Subtle, not too sweet. His expression must have betrayed his approval because Liv's face lit up with triumph. "Ha! I knew it! Mr. I only consume protein shakes and business rivals actually like something whimsical." Despite himself, the corner of Alex's mouth twitched upward. "I wouldn't go that far." The bakery owner approached their table, a plump woman with flour, perpetually dusting her apron. "Have we made a decision, dears?" "We'll need the lavender honey for the main cake with champagne elderflower for the groom's cake," Liv decided. "And can you do that sugar sculpture of the Manhattan skyline we discussed? Emma will absolutely flip." Alex's eyes widened at the casual way she committed to what he knew would be an astronomical expense. "Perhaps we should discuss the budget." "Before—" "Oh, don't be silly, Alex," Liv interrupted, waving dismissively. "You have more money than God. Let's splurge a little on your only brother's wedding." After settling the details and leaving the bakery, they stepped into the crisp autumn air of the New York afternoon. Liv consulted her phone, scrolling through Emma's meticulously organized wedding planning spreadsheet. Next up, florist on Madison, then final fitting for the bridesmaids' dresses. She glanced up at him with a teasing smile. "Don't worry, I brought a blindfold for you during the dress part. Wouldn't want to scandalize your delicate sensibilities." "I have a conference call at 3, Alex protested, already reaching for his phone to have his driver pick them up. "Cancel it," Liv said simply, grabbing his wrist to stop him. The unexpected contact sent a jolt of electricity up his arm. "Your brother's wedding is more important than whatever corporate empire building you have scheduled." Alex stared at her, torn between irritation and an unsettling fascination. Olivia Bennet operated on an entirely different wavelength than anyone he'd ever known. While the women in his social circle were calculating and strategic in their pursuit of wealth and status, Liv seemed utterly unconcerned with impressing him. "Fine," he conceded, "but we're taking my car." He gestured to the sleek black Bentley, waiting at the curb. "Of course we are," Liv rolled her eyes. "Heaven forbid Alexander Pierce takes the subway like a mere mortal." As they settled into the luxurious leather seats, Alex found himself stealing glances at her profile. Today, she'd tamed her wild copper curls into a messy bun with tendrils framing her face. She wore jeans, actual denim, not the designer variety, with a vintage band t-shirt and an oversized cardigan that looked like it had been handed down through generations. She caught him staring and raised an eyebrow. "Take a picture, it'll last longer." "I'm just trying to understand you," he admitted before he could stop himself. "Well, that's your first mistake, Alex," she said, her voice softening as she met his gaze. "I'm not a business problem to solve or a spreadsheet to analyze. I'm just Liv." For the first time in years, Alexander Pierce was genuinely intrigued by another human being, and it terrified him. The Pierce family estate in the Hamptons sprawled across 12 pristine oceanfront acres, a monument to old money and architectural extravagance. The main house, a colonial masterpiece with modern additions, stood proudly against the Atlantic horizon, its windows gleaming in the late afternoon sun. Alex checked his watch for the 5th time in as many minutes. The family dinner was scheduled to begin at 7 sharp, and his parents were sticklers for punctuality. His mother, Victoria Pierce, former debutante and reigning queen of Manhattan's social scene, had been hosting these Friday night gatherings since Alex and William were children. Tonight, however, would not follow the usual script of business. Talk and gentle probing into Alex's perpetual bachelorhood. Tonight, his future sister-in-law would be joining them, along with her parents and, God help him, Olivia. "You're pacing," William observed from the doorway of the study, looking annoyingly relaxed in casual designer wear. "I'm not pacing," Alex snapped, stopping abruptly. "I'm strategizing." William laughed, crossing the room to pour 2 generous whiskeys from the crystal decanter. "It's a family dinner, not a hostile takeover. With Olivia Bennett involved, I'm not convinced there's a difference." Alex accepted the drink, downing half in one swallow. The past 3 weeks of wedding preparations had been an exercise in patience he hadn't known. He possessed. Olivia challenged him at every turn, from questioning his taste in wine to dragging him to a karaoke bar after their last vendor meeting. To his horror, he'd found himself enjoying her company, even looking forward to their appointments. "She's not that bad," William said, studying his brother with unusual intensity. "In fact, if I didn't know better." The doorbell's chime saved Alex from whatever observation his brother was about to make. Moments later, Victoria Pierce's voice echoed through the marble foyer, welcoming the Bennett family with practiced warmth. Alex steeled himself and followed William downstairs. Emma Bennett, poised, elegant, and clearly cut from the same cloth as their social circle, greeted him with a polite kiss on the cheek. Her parents, Robert and Catherine, were equally refined, her father a federal judge, and her mother a former ballerina. And then there was Olivia. She wore a simple black dress that somehow looked both sophisticated and rebellious on her frame. Her wild hair had been tamed into loose waves, and she'd applied just enough makeup to enhance her features without masking her freckles. The overall effect was stunning. "Alexander," she grinned wickedly, ignoring his outstretched hand and pulling him into a hug. "Your house is absolutely bananas. I counted 3 fountains just in the driveway." Alex stiffened at the unexpected embrace, catching a whiff of her now familiar citrus scent before she pulled away. "Ms. Bennett, glad you could join us." "Oh, don't Ms. Bennett me after I've seen you drunk singing Total Eclipse of the Heart." "Last week," she whispered, too low for the others to hear. Alex felt heat crawling up his neck as Victoria appeared at his side, eyeing Olivia with thinly veiled assessment. "So, you're the famous Olivia," his mother said. "Emma has told us so much about you." "All lies, I assure you," Liv quipped. "Except the part about me being banned from the Plaza Hotel. That's unfortunately true, but in my defense, how was I supposed to know the fountain wasn't for swimming?" Victoria's perfectly composed face flickered with what might have been amusement or horror before she guided them toward the dining room. Dinner proceeded with surprising smoothness until dessert, when Victoria turned her attention to Olivia. "Emma tells me you're a... what was it again, dear?" "I'm a children's book illustrator," Liv said, her smile never faltering. I draw pictures that hopefully make kids laugh and want to read more. How creative, Victoria replied in a tone that suggested creative was adjacent to unemployed in her vocabulary. And do you make a living from that? Mother, Alex intervened, surprising himself. That's hardly. It's okay, Alex, Liv said, touching his arm briefly. I do quite well, Mrs. Pierce. My last book won the Caldecott Medal, and I've illustrated for several major publishers. I actually donated half of my advance from my newest series to the Children's Hospital where I volunteer on weekends. A moment of silence fell over the table, as everyone, Alex included, recalibrated their understanding of Olivia Bennet. Well, Robert Bennet said proudly, our Liv has always marched to her own drummer, but she's got a heart of gold. The conversation shifted, but Alex found himself watching Olivia with new eyes. Beneath her chaotic exterior was a depth he hadn't fully appreciated. Later, as the evening wound down, he found her alone on the terrace, gazing at the moonlit ocean. You never mentioned your success, he said, joining her at the railing. Liv shrugged. You never asked. Too busy judging the packaging to wonder about the contents. The gentle rebuke stung because it was true. I'm sorry, he said simply. She turned to him, genuine surprise in her eyes. Did the great Alexander Pierce just apologize? Should I check if hell has frozen over? He laughed. A real laugh. Not the carefully controlled chuckle he used in business settings. I'm capable of admitting when I'm wrong. Once every decade, apparently, she teased, but her smile was warm. A comfortable silence fell between them as they looked out at the water. There's a charity gala next weekend, Alex said suddenly, for the Art Museum's education program. Would you like to attend? With me? The invitation surprised them both. Liv studied him, her expression unreadable for once. Like a date? She asked. Like, I'd enjoy your company, he answered honestly. Her slow smile lit up, something in his chest. Well, in that case, Mr. Pierce, she said, extending her hand formally, I accept your invitation. As he took her hand, Alex had the unsettling realization that somewhere between broken china and family dinners, Olivia, Bennet had begun to matter to him in ways he wasn't prepared to analyze. The Metropolitan Museum of Art glowed with elegant lighting, transformed for the annual Education Foundation Gala. New York's elite mingled beneath priceless artworks, champagne flutes in hand, diamonds glittering like constellations against the backdrop of designer gowns and tuxedos. Alexander Pierce stood at the entrance, checking his watch for the third time. Olivia was 15 minutes late, which, he reminded himself, was actually early by her typically chaotic standards. He tried to ignore the irrational fear that she might not show. Then he saw her, and time seemed to stop. Olivia Bennet ascended the grand staircase in a deep emerald gown that flowed like liquid around her curves. Her copper hair was swept, up in an intricate style that somehow managed to look both elegant and moments from coming undone. She wore minimal jewelry, just simple diamond studs that had been her grandmother's, she would later tell him, letting her natural beauty command attention. As their eyes met, her nervous expression bloomed into a radiant smile that knocked the air from his lungs. Sorry I'm late, she said, reaching him slightly breathless. My cab driver decided to give me his life story and take the scenic route, through Times Square. You could have called. I would have sent my driver, Alex replied, then mentally kicked himself for sounding like a lecturing parent rather than an appreciative date, and missed the chance to hear about Jorge's 7 grandchildren and his theory about extraterrestrial influence on the stock market. She grinned, looping her arm through his. Not a chance. Despite himself, Alex smiled. You look beautiful, Liv. Her eyes widened slightly at the compliment, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. You clean up pretty well yourself, Pierce. As they entered the gala, Alex became acutely aware of the stares and whispers following them. Alexander Pierce. New, York's most eligible bachelor and notorious workaholic, with the vibrant, unpredictable younger sister of his future sister-in-law. The gossip columns would have a field day. To his surprise, he found he didn't care. "Mr. Pierce," the museum director approached, hand extended. "So glad you could join us tonight. Your donation to the children's program was exceptionally generous." "The pleasure is mine, Dr. Reynolds. May I introduce Olivia Bennett? She's a Caldecott-winning children's book illustrator." The pride in his voice surprised even him. Dr. Reynolds's face lit up. "Ms. Bennett, your work is extraordinary. The watercolor series you did for Moonlight Adventures brought such wonder to the page." Liv beamed. "Thank you, that series was special to me. We're actually developing a new children's area in the museum. Perhaps you'd be interested in consulting on the project." As the conversation continued, Alex watched Olivia in her element. Passionate, articulate, her hands animating her words as she discussed the importance of making art accessible to children of all backgrounds. The woman beside him was a far cry from the chaos-inducing whirlwind who had crashed into his life at the engagement party. Or perhaps he realized this depth had always been there. He simply hadn't bothered to look. The evening progressed with dinner and dancing. Alex was surprised to discover that beneath her typically frenetic energy, Olivia moved with natural grace on the dance floor. "Years of reluctant ballet lessons," she explained as he twirled her effortlessly. "Mom insisted. I quit when I was 16 to join a modern dance troupe instead. Nearly gave her a heart attack." "I'm beginning to think there are many layers to Olivia Bennett," Alex said, pulling her slightly closer as the music slowed. "Whereas Alexander Pierce is exactly what he appears to be on the surface," she challenged, green eyes sparkling with mischief. "And what's that?" "A ruthlessly efficient business machine with impeccable suits and a spreadsheet for a heart," she replied, but her teasing tone softened the words. "Is that really how you see me?" he asked, suddenly needing to know her answer. Liv's expression grew serious as she studied his face. "No," she said quietly. "Not anymore." The moment hung between them, charged with unspoken possibility. They were interrupted by a sharp crack of thunder that shook the museum windows. The elegant crowd murmured in surprise as torrential rain began hammering against the glass. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the event coordinator, "the National Weather Service has just issued a severe storm warning for Manhattan. We suggest you begin making arrangements to return home safely." The gala began dissolving into a flurry of activity as guests called drivers and collected coats. "I should get you home," Alex said, reluctantly releasing Liv from their dance. Outside, the storm had transformed New York into a watercolor painting of blurred lights and glistening streets. Alex's driver pulled up, and they dashed through, the downpour toward the Bentley. Even the short sprint left them soaked. Olivia laughed as she collapsed into the leather seat, raindrops clinging to her eyelashes like tiny diamonds. "Where to, Ms. Bennett?" Alex asked as the car pulled away from the curb. Liv hesitated, then made a decision that would change everything. "Your place is closer, isn't it?" she said, her voice soft, but certain. "I'm soaked to the bone and this storm isn't letting up anytime soon." Their eyes met in the dim light of the car's interior, the air between them electric with more than just the storm outside. "As you wish," Alex replied, his voice lower than intended. As Manhattan's glittering skyline blurred in the rain-streaked windows, Alexander Pierce realized he was venturing into uncharted territory, a place where spreadsheets and strategic planning offered no guidance. And for the first time in his meticulously controlled life, he was perfectly fine with that. Alexander Pierce's Manhattan penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a sleek glass tower overlooking Central Park. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the storm raging over the city skyline, lightning occasionally illuminating the minimalist space in harsh flashes. "This is exactly what I expected," Liv said as she wandered through the living room, trailing her fingertips over the edge of a sleek leather sofa. Modern, expensive, and completely devoid of personality. Alex raised an eyebrow as he handed her a fluffy, white towel. "I prefer the term curated." "Of course you do," she laughed, dabbing at her damp hair. "Let me guess. You hired some overpriced designer who charged you a fortune to make your home look like a luxury hotel lobby." I'll have, you know that Architectural Digest featured this place last year? He replied, unable to keep the defensive edge from his voice. Liv's eyes sparkled with mischief. Oh, well, if Architectural Digest approves, then who am I to question it? She continued her exploration, pausing at the wall of windows to watch the storm. Her gown, still damp from the rain, clung to her curves, in a way that made Alex struggle to maintain his trademark composure. I should find you something dry to wear, he said, turning toward his bedroom. 10 minutes later, Olivia emerged from his guest bathroom wearing his Harvard Business School t-shirt and a pair of sweatpants rolled several times at the waist. Her face was scrubbed clean of makeup, her hair pulled into a messy bun atop her head. She looked more beautiful than she had at the gala. Much better, she sighed, curling her bare feet beneath her as she settled onto his sofa. Though I'm pretty sure these sweatpants cost more than my monthly rent. Alex, who had changed into jeans and a casual button-down, handed her a glass of red wine. Exaggeration doesn't become you, Ms. Bennett. Fine, half my rent, she amended, accepting the glass with a grateful smile. For a moment they sat in comfortable silence watching the storm lash against the windows. You know, Liv said suddenly, for someone who supposedly hated me on sight, you've been remarkably chivalrous tonight. Alex took a careful sip of his wine. I never hated you. Oh, please. You looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of your imported Italian loafers. You shattered a priceless family heirloom while making jokes about superglue, he reminded her. Details, details, she waved dismissively. The point is, you've been different lately, almost human. Perhaps you're simply seeing the real me for the first time, he suggested. Liv studied him over the rim of her wine glass. And what if I like what I see? The question hung in the air between them, charged with possibility. Before Alex could respond, his phone buzzed insistently. On the coffee table, glancing at the screen, he frowned. It's William. I should take this. He stepped away, leaving Liv alone with her racing thoughts and the spectacular view. Whatever was happening between her and Alexander Pierce had escalated with dizzying speed. Just weeks ago, she'd written him off as an arrogant, soulless businessman, exactly the type of man she'd always avoided. Now she found herself in his apartment wearing his clothes, contemplating possibilities that made her stomach flutter with nervous anticipation. Alex returned, his expression troubled. Everything okay? She asked. Not exactly. He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, disheveling it in a way that made him look younger, more vulnerable. William and Emma have postponed the wedding. What? Liv sat up straight, wine forgotten. Why? What happened? Alex sank onto the sofa beside her. Apparently, they've been having some fundamental disagreements about their future. Emma wants children right away. William wants to wait until his new Tokyo office is established. They've decided to take some time to reconsider. Oh no, Liv murmured, her heart aching for her sister. I should call her. William says she's with your parents for the weekend. She asked for space. Liv nodded, knowing that was Emma's way. Retreat, reflect, then respond. The Bennett sisters might be different in almost every way, but they both needed time alone. When upset. This complicates things, Alex said quietly after a moment. The wedding planning, you mean? No. His gray eyes met hers, intense and serious. This, us. The directness of his statement startled her. Is there an us, Alexander? Instead of answering, he reached out, tucking a stray curl behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. The simple touch sent electricity coursing through her veins. There shouldn't be, he said, his voice low. You're nothing like the women I usually date. You're chaotic and impulsive and completely baffling to me most of the time. Wow, don't hold back on the compliments, she said, trying for sarcasm but achieving only breathlessness. But, he continued, moving imperceptibly closer, I can't. Stop thinking about you, about your laugh, your ridiculous stories, the way you see beauty in things I've always overlooked. Liv swallowed hard, her pulse hammering in her throat. If that's your idea of a romantic declaration, you need serious help. A rare, genuine smile transformed his face. I've been told I'm somewhat deficient in expressing emotion. Shocking, she whispered, but found herself leaning toward him, drawn by a force beyond her control. When their lips finally met, it was like coming home to a place she'd never been before. His kiss was tentative at first, then deepening as she responded with enthusiasm, her fingers tangling in his hair. A crash of thunder shook the apartment as they broke apart, both slightly dazed. "Well," Liv said, attempting to gather her scattered thoughts. "That was unexpected?" Alex supplied, his usual composure notably absent. "I was going to say inevitable," she corrected, a slow smile spreading across her face. He reached for her again, but she placed a gentle hand on his chest, stopping him. "Alex, we need to talk about Emma and William first if they're having problems." "You're right," he sighed, reluctantly putting space between them. "Their situation complicates this. If they don't reconcile..." The unspoken implication hung in the air. If Emma and William didn't get back together, what did that mean for whatever was blossoming between Alex and Liv? "One problem at a time," Liv said firmly. "First, we help our siblings figure out their relationship. Then..." She trailed off, suddenly uncertain. "Then we figure out ours," Alex finished, taking her hand and lacing their fingers together. As the storm raged outside, they talked into the night, about their siblings, their childhoods, their hopes and fears. For the first time in his life, Alexander Pierce spoke openly about his father's impossible expectations, his mother's emotional distance, and the crushing responsibility of the Pierce legacy. And for the first time in her life, Olivia Bennet felt truly seen by someone who had initially dismissed her, only to discover the woman beneath the chaos. By the time the storm cleared and dawn broke over Manhattan, something fundamental had shifted between them, something neither had been looking for, yet both now feared losing. 1 month later, Central Park bloomed in vibrant autumn colors, the trees aflame with red and gold beneath a crisp blue sky. Alexander Pierce sat on a bench near the boathouse, tugging at his collar despite the cool temperature. He checked his watch, an unconscious habit rather than actual impatience. "You're fidgeting," William observed, sitting beside his brother with uncharacteristic calm. "I've never seen you fidget." "I'm not fidgeting," Alex insisted, immediately stilling his hands. "I'm contemplating." William smirked. "Right. Contemplating how Olivia Bennet turned my control-freak brother into a lovesick teenager. I am the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation," Alex reminded him stiffly. "Not a lovesick anything." Says the man who flew to Philadelphia for 12 hours just because she mentioned missing authentic cheesesteaks. Alex couldn't argue with that. The past month had transformed his meticulously organized life into something unpredictable and infinitely more colorful. Olivia had spent more nights at his penthouse than her own apartment, gradually infusing his sterile space with her essence. Forgotten scarf draped over a chair, colorful sketch pads scattered on his dining table, ridiculous refrigerator magnets he pretended to hate. More significantly, she'd begun infiltrating the carefully guarded chambers of his heart. "Have you talked to Emma yet?" Alex asked, steering the conversation away from his own emotional evolution. William's expression softened. "Last night. We've agreed to meet this afternoon to discuss everything." After the wedding postponement, the Bennet and Pierce siblings had formed an unlikely alliance. While Liv supported Emma through her doubts and fears, Alex had shown uncharacteristic patience with William's indecision, offering counsel without judgment. "And?" Alex prompted. William took a deep breath. "And I'm going to tell her I was an idiot, that I love her more than any business venture, that I want whatever future she wants as long as we're together." Alex clapped his brother on the shoulder. "Good man. What about you and Liv?" William asked, studying his brother's face. "Are you finally going to tell her?" Before Alex could respond, his phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Operation Lovebirds in progress. Emma en route to Japanese garden. Prepare your brother for maximum groveling. Alex smiled and stood, pulling William to his feet. That's your cue. Emma's waiting in the Japanese garden. William straightened his jacket, suddenly nervous. Does she know I'll be there? Liv has her convinced they're meeting for sister time, Alex explained, giving his brother a gentle push toward the path. The rest is up to you. As William headed toward his future, Alex checked his watch once more, then set off in the opposite direction, toward the Bethesda fountain where Olivia had promised to meet him after dispatching Emma. He found her sketching on a bench, copper hair whipping around her face in the breeze, completely absorbed in her work. For a moment he simply watched her, marveling at how this chaotic whirlwind of a woman had upended everything he thought he knew about love and life. Spying is rude, Pierce, she called without looking up, somehow sensing his presence. Even for billionaires. I prefer the term strategic observation, he countered, joining her on the bench and placing a gentle kiss on her temple. She closed her sketchbook and leaned into him. Mission accomplished. Emma's on her way to either reconcile with your brother or murder him. I left it ambiguous. Encouraging, Alex laughed. William seemed appropriately remorseful and determined. Good. Liv nestled closer, her warmth a pleasant contrast to the autumn chill. Those two belong together, even if they're both too stubborn to realize it sometimes. Alex took her hand, running his thumb over her knuckles. Speaking of stubborn people belonging together, Liv raised an eyebrow. Alexander Pierce, if you're about to compare our relationship to our siblings' drama, I may have to reconsider my excellent taste in men. Actually, he said, his heart racing in a way no business negotiation had ever triggered, I was going to suggest a more permanent arrangement. Her green eyes widened as he produced a small velvet box from his pocket. Alex, she breathed, what are you doing? Something impulsive and completely out of character, he admitted, opening the box to reveal a stunning emerald ring surrounded by diamonds, which seems appropriate, given that's what you've been since the moment you crashed into my life. We've only known each other 2 months, she protested weakly, her eyes fixed on the ring. And I've never been more certain of anything in my life, he replied, taking her hand. Olivia Bennet, you turned my perfectly ordered existence upside down, and I never want it right side up again. Will you marry me? Tears glistened in her eyes as she looked from the ring to his face. Are you sure? I'm still the chaos-causing disaster who broke your mother's priceless serving platter. You're the woman who taught me that a life without spontaneity and joy isn't worth all the success in the world, he corrected. You're the woman I love, Liv, broken china and all. A brilliant smile bloomed across her face. Well, when you put it that way. Instead of answering with words, she threw her arms around his neck and kissed him thoroughly, nearly knocking them both off the bench in her enthusiasm. I'll take that as a yes? He laughed against her lips. Yes, 1,000 times yes, she confirmed, pulling back to beam at him as he slid the ring onto her finger. Although your mother might have a heart attack when she finds out. She'll survive, Alex assured her, pulling her close again. Besides, she's grown rather fond of you since you redesigned the children's wing at her hospital charity. Bribery through art, Liv nodded sagely. Works every time. As they sat together by the fountain, planning their future with a mixture of his precision and her spontaneity, Alex's phone buzzed with a text from William. She said yes, wedding back on. Best man duties resumed. Liv peered at the message and grinned. Should we tell them our news? Let's give them their moment, Alex decided, pulling her close. We'll have plenty of time for announcements. Alexander Pierce, suggesting patience? Who are you and what have you done with my arrogant billionaire? She teased, her eyes dancing with joy. I've been thoroughly corrupted by a certain impulsive redhead, he admitted, brushing his lips against hers. And I couldn't be happier about it. As the autumn sun cast golden light across the park, Alex realized how profoundly his life had changed since that fateful night, when Olivia Bennet had crashed into his meticulously ordered world. The chaos she'd brought hadn't ruined his life. As he'd initially feared, it had saved him from a life half-lived. 6 months later, a small article appeared in the New York Times Society section. In a surprise twist that has Manhattan's elite social circles buzzing, a double wedding ceremony took place yesterday at the Pierce estate in the Hamptons. William Pierce, CFO of Pierce Industries, wed Emma Bennett, while his brother Alexander Pierce, CEO, married Emma's younger sister, Olivia Bennett, a renowned children's book illustrator. Sources close to the family report that the typically stoic Alexander appeared blissfully happy as his bride approached the altar in a non-traditional emerald green gown. Victoria Pierce, mother of the grooms, was reportedly overheard saying, "I suppose if anyone could melt that boy's frozen heart, it would be a Bennett sister." The two couples will honeymoon separately, the elder in Paris, while Alexander and Olivia embark on what the bride described as a spontaneous adventure with no itinerary whatsoever, much to the reported horror of the famously schedule-oriented CEO. When asked about future plans, Olivia Pierce, née Bennett, simply smiled and said, "We're writing our story one chaotic page at a time." Emma and William Pierce welcomed twins, a boy and a girl, exactly 1 year after their wedding. William established the Tokyo office, but arranged to work remotely half the year to be with his family. Robert and Catherine Bennett retired to a cottage in Vermont, where they regularly hosted family gatherings that grew increasingly chaotic and joyful with each passing year. Victoria Pierce surprised everyone by developing a close relationship with her younger daughter-in-law, even allowing Olivia to redecorate portions of the family estate with what she grudgingly admitted was tasteful whimsy. As for Alexander and Olivia Pierce, they found balance in their seemingly incompatible approaches to life. Alex learned to embrace spontaneity and joy, while Liv discovered the benefits of occasional structure and planning. Their home, a completely renovated penthouse that combined his sleek minimalism with her vibrant aesthetics, became a testament to how opposites not only attract, but can create something more beautiful together than apart. 2 years after their wedding, they welcomed a daughter named Sophia, who inherited her father's sharp mind and her mother's wild spirit. Alex proved to be a doting father who read bedtime stories with different voices for each character and never complained when finger painting resulted in ruined designer suits. In quiet moments, he would sometimes reflect on how differently his life might have unfolded if Olivia hadn't crashed into that serving platter at his brother's engagement party, and silently thank whatever twist of fate had brought his beautiful chaos into his life.